I think it's important to start looking at our goals and looking at things we have to do in reference to their doability instead of their difficulty. Because I feel like a lot of times things are more difficult in thought than in reality simply because we allow them to be thought before we actually try to get them into reality. Because we try to think in our head how a situation is going to go, or how difficult this is, or how much time we have to put in this, or how it's going to feel when we do this, rather than actually doing it and realizing that our feelings are not contingent on a certain situation, but contingent on how we feel about it and how we approach it. I feel like the overall importance here is to realize, if you can, then do. And I feel like that's helped me a lot, especially recently, because sometimes you get lazy, sometimes you want to procrastinate, sometimes you don't want to do this, that, and the other. And I feel like part of doing your best is realizing your propensity to sort of be lazy, or to be reluctant when it comes to your own development, your own self, your own discipline, and things of that nature. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think everyone needs to have that relaxation aspect to them. But I feel like how much you relax is always in reference to how much you put in. And I'm not saying you have to overly stress yourself out, but I feel like any relaxation should be void of any stress. And I feel like the stresses of life are just the anxieties we have failed to answer because of our inaction. So what I'm saying is, in doing what you can, you realize all the things that you have to gain and all the things that you have. Because, in acting out of what you actually possess, you do what you can. And you do your best. And I feel like doing your best is the only thing that you can really do to make yourself feel, I guess, fulfilled in life. Because, we can always live in reference to other people. You can always think about how this person is doing this person is doing that. But we all have different resources. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different situations. And that's why I feel like it's important to live in reference to yourself when it comes to that, and do your best in regards to yourself. Because the self isn't something that is to be compared, because it's you. You can't compete where you don't compare. And there's no point in your comparison if your grounds of comparison aren't grounded in anything but someone's application of self, someone's expression of something that they are, the way they want to express themselves in a specific way. And I feel like when focusing on your own expression, it's important to validate whatever comes about and realize that it's not necessarily inherent to you either. Sometimes we express ourselves in certain situations for a situation. And that's not to say in a selfish way, but realizing how much of ourselves we have to put into something to get ourselves out of it. And what I mean by that truly is, having enough presence in a situation to control yourself. Because I feel like the only way to influence anything in your favor is to have control over yourself. Because you can never have complete control over something or something else that's not you. I feel like it's never been about how much you can possess, but how much of yourself is in your possession. I know I said that before, but I feel like it's very important to sort of get that point across. Because if you can, I think you should be doing. And that's not to say always keep yourself overworking or overstimulated, or doing the most. Because it's not to say, if you could think you could do it, then just do it, or drop everything you're doing and work yourself to the bone. But, be honest and reasonable when it comes to your relative relation to your goals and desires. Like if you want something and you have to do something to get it, then you might have to do that something. And I realize that a lot of us kind of want to have a shortcut to that, and we don't want to put in the pain. But I realize part of the pain, and most of the pain, isn't in doing it, but thinking about doing it. Thinking about how much time and thinking about the steps that is going to take in order to get to the point that you feel like you need to get to. But what I realize is the more you live in the present, the more that moment is already right now. It's about your relative realization of your ideal, and realizing that it's not necessarily inherent to the future, but inherent to who you are in the present enough to get to that future. If you live in the past, you can't build a future. And you have to be present to build the future, because you have to be here to make the choices that govern how things are going to go. And I think that a lot of us we somewhat let go of our responsibility as it pertains to that. And I don't necessarily view that as a necessarily negative thing, because you're not supposed to be the situation. But when it comes to your responsibility over yourself in order to do what you need to do to get from the world, I feel like you have to put that in. Some things in the world aren't necessarily given by the world, but given to you by your action. Sometimes you have to give yourself everything. And just like I say, you have to give yourself validation. This is that and the other. When it comes to your possessions, comes to your goals, dreams, and opportunities, sometimes you have to carve out your own pathway. Sometimes you have to do what you can with what you have. And all that takes is really doing what you can. If you can, then do. And I feel like that is really just what allows me to sort of stay on top of most of my stuff nowadays. Because whenever I have work, whenever I have overzealous amount of things, I'm just like, there's no point in overthinking about how it's gonna make me feel or how drained I'll be, because I'm already projecting a feeling, already embracing and adding negativity to a situation I have yet to be a part of. And that's why I feel like it's also an important thing nowadays is not contributing to the world's negativity or not contributing to your own. Realizing that, situations are at the end of the day going to be just as they are. And it's important to not make them worse than they are just by thinking about them in a negative way. Sometimes you have to move forward with a sort of delusion or a sort of newness to whatever it is you're encountering. Otherwise, everything you're going to do is going to be in reference to the last thing you did. And I've been realizing that a lot lately because I've been, doing a lot. Not gonna lie, just filling my days up with as much as I can do, and then expressing myself and trying to realize that who I am isn't necessarily dictated by how I feel about certain situations, and I've tried my best to not allow my energy or how I feel to be dictated by anything that's outside of me. In a very, I guess, minute sense, in an intimate sense, in a personal sense that allows me to be more comfortable with whatever I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, all I have to be is myself, and all anyone else has to do is be themselves. But overall, what I'm realizing is it's important to sort of take that step back from the world. Take that step back from yourself and realize that the limit to your capability is exactly what you think it is. It's how much of yourself you realize is in a situation and how broad your perspective is enough to accommodate whatever it is you want into it. And I think that the most important thing is thinking that you can or figuring out by doing. And I feel like the greatest affirmation to yourself that you're capable and that you're able to do anything is to not think about it and actually apply yourself to do it. To actually get out here and do whatever you feel like is necessary, or whatever you feel like is inherent to your situation or going to benefit you in an overall longevity standpoint. Because doing isn't necessarily about your thought process for it. It's about your actual action and application. And your thought process is what's going to allow you to do that in a way you find befitting of yourself. Even when I do stuff that I don't want to do, I stop like sucking my teeth, smacking my lips at it, and be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Because at the end of the day, if it's something I have to do, there's no point in adding that negativity to whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, it's not that bad. Like, oh, I ran out of groceries. I don't want to go grocery shopping today. Oh, man, I'm just like, okay, I'll go grocery shopping today. Or I'll do this today. Or I'll work on this today. Or I'll go out and talk to this person. I'll go out and sign this, whatever. I don't know. All that to say, it's just important to not contribute that to what you do. I feel like any connotation for yourself or any judgment you have for yourself or the things you do are going to be dictated by you. Whether or not someone else, projects that onto you or gives that to you, it's about how you accept it and how you move forward with the information that's presented to you. And when it comes to information that's presented to me or presented in a negative way, I feel like it's important to let it go one ear and out the other. Sort of allow things to pass, let it go. Because at the end of the day, whatever is negative or that's said about you or by other people that has ignorance and has no truth to it, I feel like it's important to let it go because it's not. What sticks to us will be what we allow to stick to us. What we allow to be part of who we are, allowed to be part of that mentality. And I feel like that's, of course, easier said than done, but I don't necessarily think it's a matter of whether or not it's easy. It's a matter of whether or not it's important. I think it's just important for us to realize when things aren't inherent to us. Important to realize when things don't necessarily contribute to who we are. And realize that the biggest thing that contributes to who we are, the biggest thing that contributes to whatever we do is our love for ourselves. How much of yourself you allow to be in your space, how much of yourself you allow to be within your perception, and how much you feel that perception with the love you have for yourself. And that's what I mean by making life more intimate, making life more personal. Not taking things personal, but making life more intimate, being more involved with life and less attached, but realizing that what you do is always going to be in reference to you. It's important to sort of walk your life in a way that's going to be befitting of yourself and filled with your love and affection. And even in things I don't want to do, I still try to fill it with the affection for myself. Sometimes when I'm in a negative situation or I'm doing something that makes me slightly uncomfortable, say I have to do some crazy speaking or some crazy, I don't know, I mean, call it crazy. Just something in general. I try my best to just get out there and do it and be happy that I get the opportunity to sort of walk outside my comfort zone. to experience what it is to be me, because that's what I feel like we experience ourselves in our unknown. Once you give yourself room to breathe and room to grow, you see the ways in which you want to, the ways in which you're going to naturally, and not necessarily in a natural sense to say, if you're going in a negative direction, let yourself, but to say understand where you're rooted and understand where you're headed, depending on how you're, I guess, tending to yourself. And I feel like sometimes we build ourselves in an unstable soil, but that's not the soil I'm talking about. Isn't necessarily a matter of, the world or the surroundings we're around, but letting other things be sort of descriptors and connotators for who we are other than ourselves. I feel like you have to be able to connotate yourself. And I feel like that's what's helped me. What pretty much everything I do is just being sure that I'm the first one to give my opinion on something, or I'm the first one to have a feeling about what it is that I do, because my expression has to be validated by me. Otherwise, I'm being controlled by another person in regards to my expression. And I feel like that's what's important. Understanding that if you can, you should. If you can, do. Because there's so much out here in the world. There's so much that is possible. There's so much that you can do. I'm really only talking about things beneficial to you. I'm not saying if you can, go commit this crime, then do it. Don't do that. Of course, be moral. And I feel like sometimes I have to stress this because I don't know what people get into. Regardless, I just feel like it's important to walk, with your own grace in a sense. Understand the implications of your actions. Understand, what they do, and try to be mindful to the best of your ability. But also give yourself forgiveness when you aren't. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect, and it's important to recognize that and fall in love with your imperfection. Realize that your room for improvement is your room for growth. It's about how you connotate it, and it's not necessary. It's about realizing that you don't need to be fixed. It's about realizing yourself and realizing who you are. Because at the end of the day, it's not something you're getting rid of. It's something you're changing. These parts of you already existed. That part of you that was patient, or that is patient now, wasn't patient at some point, and it's just grown into something better. It's just about how much life you give to yourself and how much love you give to the parts of yourself that seek out change. Because at the end of the day, you can't hate yourself into being a better person. You have to embrace yourself with that kind of love and that kind of affection. And I feel like that's what allows you to do. That's what allows you to realize that whatever it is out here that you need to get done, it is possible. And you might be saying like, wow, how is it possible? Well, I think if it's humanly possible, it means you too can do it. I feel like it's about not placing limits on yourself in regards to what it is that you can do, because at the end of the day, the only way to find out is to find out. I feel like a lot of times we try to answer in mind, and that's what kind of sets us back, because a lot of us have pent up insecurity. A lot of us aren't necessarily all the way up here in order to have that type of connotation for ourselves, because it's built on something that is not us. And that's why I feel like it's important to sort of answer your own question to that some point. Like, instead of thinking about whether or not I can do this, whether or not I can apply myself, I'm going to go out there and try. Whether or not I think I can hit the dance move or something like that, there's only one way to find out. I'm not just going to answer it in my head, because at the end of the day, whatever answer you give me in your head in regards to yes and no, especially when you tell yourself no, is the truth. If you tell yourself you can't do something, then 9 times out of 10, you won't be able to, because you won't ever apply yourself. You won't ever give yourself the opportunity to find out. And that's why I feel like it's important to sort of open the barriers to your own understanding and open the barriers to who you are. Because who you are isn't some stagnant thing. It's whatever you allow it to be. It's as a fluid as you allow your mind to be. Sometimes you have to fit into the cup. Sometimes you don't. At the end of the day, you have to learn to love what's inside of it. Not what's outside of it, not whatever surrounds it, but, whatever's inside of you. If you don't go within, you go without. And I feel like that's very true. It's about how much of yourself you bring into your situations and how much of yourself you can take out by putting in. All that to say, if you can, I think you should. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. I really do appreciate y'all. And if you haven't, I still appreciate you nonetheless. So I have a lot of stuff on the way. Schedule's clearing up. I know I haven't streamed yet. I haven't really got to it, or maybe I have. By the time this comes out, I really hope I have. All in all, thank you. keep being y'all, keep being great. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're being honest with yourself and doing what you can.